Welcome to the U-Turn podcast. My friend, this is Ashley Stahl. I'm your host, and you are in the right place if you're ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you're so proud of. And every single week, we want to support you by bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all here on the show to elevate your success in business and also in life so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities you're creating for yourself in your career, whether you're corporate or you're a business owner. And if you are new here, again, my name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international bestselling author of the book U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO and founder of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and I was so inspired to create Wise Whisper and help clients craft their signature talk. We've helped hundreds of clients craft their talk, and we've also helped so many of them land spots on some of the biggest stages in the world, including the TED and TEDx stage. And so I am here on a mission to help every changemaker I know impact millions. Also, before we get into this episode, shout out to our friend Andy B. Mackin, the artist that has gifted us this sick new music for the podcast. Let's get into this week's episode. Okay, U-Turn friends, today is the day that I bring Sara Connell onto the show, and honestly, it's overdue. I've been really looking forward to this interview, and if you haven't heard of her, she's a 5 times best-selling author, so she knows a thing or two about writing. She has plenty of content. She's the founder of the Thought Leader Academy. She helps coaches, experts, and entrepreneurs really scale their impact and create 6 to 7 figures by becoming best-selling authors and in-demand speakers. You know that over at Wise Whisper Agency, we have helped so many clients craft their signature talk and get booked on the TEDx stage. And she really works with a lot of speakers that have some sort of relationship with TEDx, want to be on TEDx, et cetera, et cetera. She's been everywhere, whether it's Oprah, New York Times, Good Morning America, Today, Forbes, Entrepreneur. And I'm really excited to talk to her about thought leadership, about writing books, about scaling to 7 figures, about mindset. So this is going to be such a cool conversation. I encourage you to grab your pen, grab your paper. And Sara, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.
Yeah, this has been long overdue. Can you tell me, what is it that inspired you to help thought leaders in general? What was that spark for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up, I don't know how, everyone's age, your age, we're getting to know each other now and been looking forward to this. The thought leader wasn't a term, right? It wasn't a thing that we said until a little more recently. And I love it because it sort of encaptures everything that I'm passionate about from the standpoint of I believe thought leadership starts with leading our own thoughts. So that's kind of the mindset piece, right? Which we make it into or not, however we want. But the idea of it starts there, right? With a vision and a calling and an idea. And then how do we, share whatever we want to call the big magic, that we've been given with others through you and I have a passion for helping people do that through speaking, through their story, through TEDx stage. And certainly the reason books are so important to me is that I don't know, right out of college, I got a job at this big advertising agency, and it was this very cool, they came and recruited at our university, and it was big, deal to get this job, and everyone was like, oh, it's so awesome. And it had all the external trappings, and I got in there, and it was the height of the Me Too era, and it was just it was a disaster. It was a toxic abuse. Anyone that's walked a version of that, right, and so the way that I dealt with this trauma and this environment that I was in, as a single woman, 22 years old, feeling like I have to support myself. I didn't have anything to fall back on, so it was I thought, this is what I have to do to make a living and pay rent and have food. And as it got increasingly worse, as those things do, I started to really spiral into this sort of physical mental health crisis, eating disorder, just that was kind of my management tool. And one day I was at a particularly low point, flying back from Boston to Chicago, where I lived and was working. And I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to die. That's actually how I felt. I mean, I felt like someone's going to kill, either my physical health is going to go, I'm dying a soul death every time I walk in that, we called it the Dark Tower. It's you walk in this, and it's a gorgeous building in Chicago, but it was, we call it the Dark Tower. And I found a book in the Boston airport. Just didn't have time to read the book covers, didn't have time to read that. I just randomly grabbed a book and I read the whole book on the flight home, stayed up all night reading. And by the time I finished, I said, that's it.
Mm,
I'm leaving the job. I'm going to figure my, I don't know if I can curse on here, but figure out my, what, get
yeah.
my S together. I'm going to deal with all this stuff that, is like kind of brought me to this place. And I'm going to write. I'd
Mm,
always wanted to be a writer. And then I took this kind of shadow creative job in advertising instead of like writing books like I wanted to. And so I credit that book as saving my life.
wow. Isn't it wild how when we have a hard time, it's like we're so vulnerable. What we don't realize is how receptive we are, what sponges we are when we're down. And it's like, look, we almost turn into little kids, like quite literally all the trauma sometimes brings us into our smaller young selves. And it's like with that comes this willingness to be on your knees and kind of say, like, show me the way, like, give me a
Mhm.
new answer. And it makes me sad because there's so many women, and I've been that woman, and it sounds like you have too, where we'll burn ourselves out. We got to support ourselves, especially the single women out there who don't have a partner or they don't have parents that financially can support them and be that invisible net, especially as entrepreneurs. That's been me, right? Like I haven't had anybody to pay my bills this entire journey. I haven't had the parents with the trust fund and I have no judgment. I love that for people who have that. That's amazing. And that wasn't my story. So the lows for me have been so low because I don't have a backup. Um, so let's speak to the person who's listening right now that's like, I'm really struggling to pay my bills. This has been hard. I want to have a brand. I have so much to say. Where would you begin if you lost everything you had and you wanted to make $1 million
Right.
and you wanted to build a brand that like really influenced the masses and changed lives? Where would be your starter pack?
So, I mean, I'll say I've got good news for anyone that has been where both of us have been, right? Self-made women all the way, like nothing, no backup plan on any of this journey. So, I think starting with the calling, starting with and again, I'll just use Elizabeth Gilbert's term here, the big magic, like whether you want to turn that big magic into a talk, a TEDx, a book, YouTube channel, like whatever. There's everybody listening to this knows you are those of you watching this, that you when you have something inside you
Yeah.
that you're here to share, it. You can feel I have a book in me, I have a talk, whatever it is, right? So I think you start with yesing yourself and sort of a cheesy way to just say, yeah, like the fact I always think of, I don't know if you're a signs person, but I would walk around like, give me a sign. I still love signs. I'm like, give me a sign this is the right path. Give me a sign. I mean, it makes life fun. It's like a little wink from the universe. Like we love signs. And I really, really believe at this point that the calling in your heart and your soul is the sign.
Mm,
The fact that you have the spark has ignited is actually the sign that you're meant to do it. That's your destiny. And
mm,
so I really try to work on that with my still love ask for signs. They're so fun. I love them. And I always welcome them. And like sometimes we want permission or validation or something to say you're allowed to do it. Now, in terms of the monetizing it, right? That's like what we specialize in is because you can write a book and have no return on that book
yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
Many people have.
Yeah.
Many people have. I have. I did that at the beginning. So then it's about, okay, if that wants to come out as, a TEDx talk, you're gonna call Ashley and, be there via the agency. If it's a book, right? You find someone who has a roadmap because there's a lot of ways to do a book that are not going to give you any of the returns you want, right? So I would start with the idea of what's the transformation I want to give to the world? What is that modality, that framework, that personal story, whatever it is, and reverse engineer that project, not just saying, I'm going to tell my story
Right.
because that might not do anything except like your mom and your cat read it and you're really bummed because or see it or hear it, right? So then it's really about, okay, what like how to reverse engineer whatever that creative urge is that you have inside you toward the outcomes that you want. And so in terms of making the $1 million, if I was starting all over, what research shows, 'cause I'm a big brain science person, what research shows is that the average adult has a 2.9-second attention span right now.
Sounds
That's
right.
that's our number because we do this all day and we're constantly extra appendage, right? So we have a 2.9-second attention span. That's what we've done to our brains. And so you think, well, why the hell would you write a book to make the $1 million? Well, I love this because I was like, okay, I want to know like how long it takes to process a book cover. So the data says that in 1.8 seconds, someone sees your name, your topic, your book.
When you think about businesses growing their sales beyond forecasts, you probably think about a product with very high demand, a very focused brand, and influence-driven marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Shopify is home to the number one checkout on the planet, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout brands like Mattel and Heinz use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/U-turn, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/U-turn to upgrade your selling today. Again, that's shopify.com/U-turn.
And or your TEDx talk, or like some asset, right, that establishes you as an authority and the person who has the answer to their problem. Or the pathway to their dream. It doesn't have to be a problem. It could be a pathway to a dream. So in 1.8 seconds, you break the attention span barrier, right? And have some kind of asset that you can, I kind of go like this, like flag in the ground. So you start to emanate out, like, this is what I stand for. This is who I serve. This is what I can help you do, achieve, overcome, whatever it is, right? And so I would start with some thought leader asset that is valued. So a TEDx talk and a book are the two top most valued in our society. That's just the check in the box of expert, help you book paid speaking. You guys know this, right? So I would start there, but I would be very deliberate in that book about making sure that it's leading people where you would love to serve them further with something high ticket. So you want to put a high ticket offer with the book. And that's really like what we always specialize. Some people come in and say, oh, I don't know if I really want to, it could be a retreat. It could be a course. It's just, you're putting something behind that pathway, and you are creating an interactive experience in the book. It's the last piece I'll say, interactive experience in the book, so that someone goes from a reader to a client. Just leave it to chance. In the 2.89 second attention span world, no one's going to like hunt you down on Instagram in enough volume for you to make the $1 million. Yeah, a few people will.
Yeah.
So, you want to take that right out, give them away right through the book. We create book portals. So someone goes into the world of you and your book, and then they binge you, and then they can become your high ticket client.
I love this. And I also know what it takes to get a book out there in the world and how powerful of energy you need to have to get behind it, to put it out there. And I know not everybody's meant to write a book, right? And not everybody's meant to give a TEDx talk. Like, we've had some clients come in where I'm like, yeah, we are ghostwriters and we are, I think, the best at this, but we can't make you have content. Like, if you don't have a body of thinking, and everybody has a story. So I don't want to mistake the fact that there's a lot of people that come in there like, I don't have anything to say. I'm like, let's start seeing what you have to say. And then they have a lot to say. But there's some people that like, I think of a art dealer that came in, and it was like, well, what do you have to say about creativity? Like, that was the branding that he wanted to speak through. And he's like, I don't know. I just think it's important. And it was like, okay, well, we can't write a TED Talk with this, so we can't take you on. And then the other thing I'm curious about is books. Like, when I wrote my book, I had a whole life of stories, but I know that nobody wants to read about my life unless it caters to their life in some way and in a real way, right? So I have a body of work in the U-turn book where it's 12 steps to figure out your career path, and it coincides with my story. But I know not everybody's meant to write a book. What would you say to the person who's on the ground floor right now? They know they have something to say. They know they have a book inside of them. How do they start looking at how to kind of like outline and create that book? Like, you're talking about having an offer, but then also, how do they think about getting it out there? Because I DM'd probably 600 podcast hosts. I got myself on 120 podcasts. And now we've sold over 50,000 books. I got a book deal in Asia, and who would have thought I'd be a New York Times level bestseller in Taiwan, of all places, but I am. And so, just anything you could share about that.
Yeah, I love this question so much because, like you said, you can do the stuff, or I have a story. And as much as, we might find, or I find people either they find their own story so fascinating, they might miss like what's in it for the reader, or they think they have no value and their story has no value, and it's like incredibly compelling and like people could get a lot out of it. So I do think tying your whatever you want to share, even again, you're going to weave in your personal story in pretty much any kind of book you write, even if it's leadership or a business book, but it's where are you taking someone, right? All the great assets like take someone on a journey, and someone's different at the beginning of your book or your talk than they are at the end.
Right.
And so thinking about what is that transformation you really want to provide, and then kind of Venn diagramming it, right? With where does that meet the world's need? Where does that meet the need of enough critical mass of the population so that someone is looking for that, right? They're looking for that solution. And so you helping people like redefine career and your purpose. I mean, that's a very, very, very important and desired, outcome that people want. So of course the book, was well received, right? So we want to make sure that it's all about service to the reader. Otherwise you can write a journal, or you could like write a book and make it bound and share it with your family. Or I mean, that's fine. We're talking here when you're saying about like making $1 million as a thought leader, that's a different proposition. And we go into it, it's all about the reader. Obviously, you want to have passion, right? That's where they have to overlap. I love the definition of dharma, right?
Yeah.
Where our passion meets the world's need. That's what we're looking for, that intersection. And so I think that's crucial to make sure that you have, like you did, you had 12 steps. There's a framework, there's a pathway, there's a guide, there's, take someone that we either through lived experience or skill development or education or something have earned the right, to take people on that journey. And then when we think about, getting it out there, right? How do we let people know and get it read? That's a whole nother commitment, making the commitment to write a book, but
Yeah,
then
it's huge.
making the commitment to promote and
Right.
market it is a whole second commitment that
Yeah.
happens that's equally as enormous. And that's where a lot of people I work with, and I was this way, it was like, God, I just want to write a book and, have millions of people read it. Well, yeah, wouldn't we all, right?
Yeah.
It's like everyone would, but it's really, again, if we keep all of it about service, the what we're going to give the reader is the transformation, but the promotion is service. Selling the book is service. It's just who needs what you have. Because then when it's about helping someone, there's less of, oh, I've got to go sell myself and sell this now. You went and pitched yourself on, how many did you say you pitched?
Like
500,
600 podcast. Yeah.
600 podcasts and booked a tour of like 100, 120.
Yeah. Yeah.
Phenomenal. That's an amazing conversion rate. We teach a 6-step pitch so people can certainly pitch themselves like you did. You can hire people. There are people that are experts in podcast bookings and, different things. You can work with speaking agents, but really there's so much to be done organically. Like, I don't know if you did this for years, but something that, well, before we had our own publishing company, I had to find a way to help get all our authors at least bestseller ranking on Amazon, if not on the other lists, right? We just wanted everyone to have the credential of best-selling author. And so we really worked on influencer campaigns. And that's really about researching who are people that have between 5,000 and, 100,000 followers on Instagram, because Instagram is one of the platforms you can actually see someone's audience number.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Yeah.
on some platforms, right? But you can there. And then really creating a mission bridge, because you want to go to someone you don't even know, be like, promote my book. Like, no one wants to do that.
Right.
But it's really about establishing a generous relationship and, how can I support what you're doing? And oh, by the way, we're on the same team. And I wrote this book for people like the people that follow you. If you're open, I'll send you a copy. And if you're, and that's how we would do it at the beginning. It was really about podcast tours, influencer, and doing that, zero ads, zero PR, zero everything. You can start to really make some headway and let
Yeah.
that book open a lot of doors.
Yeah. Yeah, books are powerful, and it's such an intimate way for people to get to know you. It's such a long-term way for you to be threaded into their consciousness. And you have to remember, obviously, that like no matter what high ticket offer you're offering, you need to provide such extraordinary value in that book that the person wants more of what you're offering. Somebody that I know very well and intimately that I love that does this so well is Gina DeVee. She is so good at providing value. She is so full of, her book's called Audacity to Be Queen, and she has so many offers in there. She has so many people that are taking her up on her retreats and her programs. And it's rightfully so. It's because she is literally doing the most basic thing that we forget about when we become marketers sometimes, is providing value. And I can even feel that. Like my team right now, they're sending me a bunch of bullet points of wanting me to film a bunch of reels for social media. And sometimes I see some bullets, I'm like, man, I'm just repeating the thing I just said. And it's like diluted and it's like, there's not that much content here. Let me toss that. And sometimes we get so lost in quantity and getting things done, the quality is lower. So I want to encourage anybody, don't be afraid to have a shorter book. right? Like, don't
Yes.
be afraid to just make it all about the protein and cut the fat, cut the fat out of that book. Um, Okay, so I want to talk to you about wealth building because you wrote a book about getting rich, and I think that this is so important. And there's so many marketers that I think feel guilty saying, I want to get rich. So they say, I want to make an impact. And they do. A lot of people do. But a lot of
Yes.
people want to get rich too. And money matters. And you got to pay for your health care and your this and your that and your dog. And so I really just want to anchor into the thinking you had that built you wealth and that you think is crucial for other women to understand.
Yes.
Can you share with me some of the mindsets, some of the approaches, some of the inflection points or decisions that really brought you into the wealth that you want to have?
Yeah, this has been such a big journey for me. So, I came from, just to give context, I came from what I felt was a very like money negative household. From the standpoint of we didn't have, there wasn't like an abundance. So I always felt like embarrassed to have people, come over because their houses were so much bigger or their cars were nice. Like I did, and again, whether that was appropriate for me to care about externals or not, that's just like how I was feeling, at that time in my life. And it was also, I was raised in a religious background where it was really it was very sinful to care about money. Like that was just, you were a bad person if you either cared about God or you cared about money, right? And so there was this very like unconscious thing going on, just so a lot of poverty mindset, a lot of unworthiness, especially in my female family line that I felt. And so when I started becoming, I was all, oh, it has to be about impact and serve it. And it is that. It's all of that. But I like the I and I, impact and income, like equally important, right? And so anyway, when I started having this call, I'd have all of these frustrations and I kept trying to make money, and I was making like $20,000 as a writer and coach. You humiliated when I would like do my taxes at the end of the year. So embarrassed that with all my privilege and I had a good education and I had skills and I had passion, like how was I not able to like be functioning, in this way? And so I really kept like hitting this, that inner glass ceiling kind of thing. And so what happened is that I really did one of those on your knees moments. And I was like,
Yeah.
is this just about more, more, more? Am I just being like a gross American? And, is this just about I need more, and because I kept having this feeling of I want to make $1 million a year, as an entrepreneur. Like I just felt this calling to go to seven figures. And I was like, I don't want to do this if it's my ego. Like I just am not here for that game. And what I heard was just this is not about the money at all. It is about breaking unworthiness and poverty off your family. Like that's actually what this journey is about. And equally was you do not want to be another place for the starving artist. I don't want to be another coach that's like, you can come in here and love your craft, but make no money. Another writer that's going to like toil away in the garret and be freezing. And, it's just like, F that, we are done. I'm so over it. And then I found out that women, this was, a bit later, but, women had lost $800 billion in the pandemic.
Wow.
That was the global economic hit as of 2022. And that's why I wrote The Science of Getting Rich for Women, which is kind of a play on an old Wallace Wattles book called The Science of Getting Rich. So I was
Mhm.
like, I'm not going to do another a man shall like colonialist, like whatever. I was like, nope, not interested in that. So what happened is mindsets, right? So what I realized is that I had a mentor who said to me, when I wanted to break any next milestone, she's like, I would make a list of all the reasons I felt like I couldn't. And then I would go to someone who specialized in subconscious clearing work.
Yeah.
And I would say, clear this out. And I would get myself lined up. And I don't know, it was like, it's not that I didn't know it. I've been doing affirmations and make vision boards, but something about working with actual like brain science modalities. So I did that. And the year I did that, I had made $300,000 as of July. I had obviously, it was a huge amount more than the 20 grand I'd been making like 2 years ago. So really good. And I was like, this is my $1 million year. I have no backing. I have no way to prove it. Nothing in a spreadsheet would justify it, but that's where we're going. And
Mm.
I did two things. One, wrote down all the reasons I felt like I couldn't do it. And I started, pulling out the old mindset modalities. I went to experts who were specialists in neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm trained in, but hadn't been using, EFT tapping, which I, hadn't been using, hypnosis, which I'd been trained in and hadn't been using, right? I just said, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to do like massive subconscious reprogramming work and really learn brain science. And I am going to every day say, what does the seven-figure CEO do today? And I'm
Mm,
gonna, whatever answer comes to me. It's like I burn the boats, like whatever that is. It could be what I wear. I went through my whole closet and got rid of everything that didn't, to me, match with seven-figure entrepreneur, whatever I thought that meant for myself. And what happened is that we crossed the $1 million mark December 12th.
mm,
And for the first, and then we've consistently done, seven, multiple sevens from there. So it was like that, those two pieces, which aren't about strategy. I didn't build a funnel. I didn't spend money on, I mean, I took action. I networked, I developed referral partners. I wrote books. It was absolute, it was guest speaking a lot. I was using the thought leader tools, but I had been using them. And it didn't work until I really reprogrammed on that subconscious level because that drives 90% of our behaviors. It's identity.
mhm, mhm, mhm. I'm curious, like I think a lot of people think about $1 million and they think about revenue, and I've made more than $1 million in revenue many times, but I've always struggled to keep it because I'm paying myself, maybe 200K of it, and then 800 is for cost of goods and operating costs, and it's really, really hard to build a business and make it sustainable. How have you? What has been your thinking or your mindset to bring more money in and to keep more money? Because a lot of
Yes.
women, especially online, they're like, I want to hit seven figures. And it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. And it's total for me, just the personal decision. I don't care about that gross number for any kind of like bragging. It's like if I'm not keeping it and it's not letting me have a life that I want and contribute to the things I care about and be generous with like it's I'd rather make 300,000 and keep it all than make 1 million and keep 250, right? That's kind of like what you're saying. And I did at the beginning. Luckily, I sort of had an intervention with myself around the 300K mark. And I
Mm,
realized that I had crap profitability. And I understood then finally the pain of the difference between gross
yeah.
and what you're keeping, right? You're like, oh, I could see how you could make 1 million and keep nothing. Or
Yeah.
people go into debt, they make a
Easy.
million. I have some
Oh,
figure
yeah.
he's hot in a hot minute.
It's
So
so
I realized,
boring. I'm like, I'm so
oh,
bored for everybody who's following people that, and I don't mean to insult the people. I think that sucks. Like, there's a lot of people building brands and their marketing is like, don't you want to make seven figures like me? And then I see them and their credit cards declining at dinner. And I'm like, oh, this is
yeah.
not an integrity. And I think that's what we're being called to do in this space right now is to have the integrity.
Yes. And to care about what we really care about. Again, everyone has their own, I'm not here to police anyone, I just know profitability is crucial. So I made a vow at that point that profitability was the non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard because it meant I said no to things that could have helped us grow faster, things I could have invested in for branding and marketing, more help on the team. I made a lot of conscious decisions and continue to have the profitability level that I want. I work more hours than I would if I just even hired out more, but it's a very deliberate choice that I'm making at this point in my life when I have the energy and I have, because to me, knowing that, I mean, we reached at one point 60% profitability last
That's
year
amazing.
in the coaching world, like you don't know. I'm not going to keep it there because I actually want to invest more in marketing this year and in teams. So again a conscious choice. But even just knowing I make it a non-negotiable to be at above 40%. That's just like that's my personal like 40 to 50 is where that's my range. And I'll make choices, hard choices about team, about all kinds of things in the business. And so, yes, have I slowed our growth potentially? Sure. Maybe we'll see. But I know that what I'm bringing home, the other trick is if everyone's not doing this yet, if you've got revenue coming in, is, really setting up, a payroll pool where you're not deciding what you're paying yourself. That was a move I did as well, where it's like, this is the amount and it comes out automatically. Like if you were at a company, taxes are taken out, like everything is removed. So I don't get to kind of fall back on, oh, I could use that for something else. It's like, no, that actually gets pulled out. Right now I'm a mom and I have a family. So part of it is I have people relying on me even in my personal life in addition to my team. So
Yeah.
there's more of there's more ease of that commitment in the sense of like I want my child to go to school where he wants to go to school. Like there's things that I paid for our house. It's like there's a mortgage I've chosen to have, and so some of it is just knowing I want to pay for those things. But it's so empowering to make profitability the priority versus gross sales because you're going to keep that and it
Yeah.
feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Fully. And I think that like margins are something that women don't talk about enough in business. I almost never hear women say that word when I'm in a business group, which I'm like, that's a very important word. And I've been doing my market research, asking friends like, hey, if you're an agency, what's your margins? I hear a lot of agencies have like, 15 to 25% margins. I hear a lot of products have even thinner margins. I hear a lot of coaching certifications have thicker margins. Maybe it's 40%. And obviously we want to strive for the moon so we could take the best care of ourselves, get paid on our work. Um, when you think about the thing that really shifted your mindset, what did you do to bring in more wealth?
Yeah. So I think the that identity piece that I know it sounds so overly simplified, but deciding what I have our clients do is I have them choose an identity statement. When I say identity, I mean we have neuroplasticity, so we can make up. We think our identity is fixed. It's completely not, right? We can reinvent ourselves at any moment, and everything's revisable. So whether that a new identity is for someone best-selling author, TEDx speaker, seven-figure entrepreneur, eight-figure coach, like whatever that identity statement and it because it starts with all the research points to identity drives all of our decisions and our
Right.
behavior 'cause it generates feelings, thoughts, emotions, all the things. So when we start with my mindset work of just saying, even though I didn't believe it, it felt like a total fantasy. I am, a seven-figure entrepreneur. That mindset piece of claiming it, because our decisions determine our destiny. I love that. That's a Tony Robbins who probably took it from Jim Rohn or someone, but like, decisions determine our destiny. So I just made a decision to become, a $1 million a year coach and then build from there. And it doesn't happen overnight just because we say it. It's not like a, fairy tale in that way. But there is something, if we're willing to affirm that every day, and then start taking every action we possibly can, not putting ourselves in debt. I don't believe I've never actually in my entire business, I've done cash only. Like I've never done any debt, lines of credit, nothing, only
Wow.
because that was a choice. That's a choice, right? Because I wanted wealth building and I wanted to be adding. So again, it's like you get really freaking resourceful because it's like, well, if I gotta use what I have here to make something happen, then what am I? And that's what's life will always meet us to match the decision we actually make, not a hope, wish, fantasy, like a decision. And so that mindset of I am a fill in your goal, and then saying, what does that person do? And if you don't know, because I didn't know, I wasn't in enough rooms. Like you said, you're in, masterminds and other groups. I had to get in rooms with people who were seven figures. And I felt
Yeah.
like an idiot for being there because I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm such, a little peon here. But it's like Michael Jordan. How do you get really good? You play with people seven times better than you.
Yeah.
Like
It's
getting in a
true.
virtual room, a real room, watching people on podcast interviews, like what did they do? And then start creating the roadmap from the common denominators. Like, oh, they all worked with a coach. They all wrote a book. They all did Facebook ads. They all, it's like, what are people doing that are at this level? And then starting to just, at whatever means I have within, whatever I can do within my resources, do as many of those as possible. That creates a tipping point.
Right. Right. Okay. I I'm thinking of the woman who's listening and they still don't feel empowered. They're like, okay, I could write a book. Okay, I could reach out to podcast. Okay, I could have something high ticket. Okay, I need to think about my margins. And they're very much in the right now and today. And they're
Yeah.
like, these are some big goals, but how do we get a move on now? How do we
Yeah.
bring in cash now? What
Yeah.
would you do if you were in that person's shoes?
Yeah. So I would go back to again that first kind of part of that Venn diagram of like what are you passionate about? What's your big magic? So if you love nutrition or you love pets or find the thing that because passion is contagious and passion is magnetic. And so you find that and then I would not go try to make a sale. I would go find 10 people that are the type of person you would want to serve, like helping in that way, right? So if you want to help people plant a rose garden. I interviewed someone the other day talking about they have this amazing rose garden they learned from their grandmother. If you want to help people like cultivate rose gardens, you'd find 10 people, you post on social media who wants to start and learn, rose garden, and that's your passion. And I wouldn't make them an offer. I would just interview them for 10 minutes and say at the end, I'll give you a great tip on, rose, whatever it is. And I would say, I'm looking to serve people just like you, amazing people who are fascinating and they love nature and they really want to learn this art of cultivating rose gardens for wellness and health and all the benefits and, appreciation, joy. And I'm thinking of doing this, what would you want me to help you with, for how much, for how long? Like, great marketing is great listening. So I would listen to 5 to 10 people, say how much they would pay someone to help them achieve this. What would they help them achieve? How long would it take? And then I would create an offer out of that. You don't need to have a website. You don't need to have infrastructure. You don't need to have Kajabi or some course. Literally, I would find the people to tell you, shape, like, here's what the market is probably going to be interested in from a price perspective and offering. And then and you won't feel like it. It'll feel awful. It'll feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable, as just horribly uncomfortable and embarrassing, and everything, like asking for be set up on a date. But by the end of those conversations, people are very honest. They'll say, "Oh, I'd pay $100 for this, or I'd pay $10,000 for this." They'll tell you.
Yeah.
And then I would create an offer, and I would just find one person and offer and get paid by one person to break the seal, and then keep listening. What else do they need? What else? I mean, and just like that will, that first sale,
Yeah.
so empowering. You validated your offer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this way you don't go and develop a whole landing page and spend all this time and put something out that you don't even know if people are going to go for, because you've actually asked. And I'm not talking about a fancy market research and a focus group feeding people M&Ms. I'm talking about have 5 conversations on Zoom for 20 minutes each.
Yeah. 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 I love this. Okay. You've shared so much about money, about thinking about your brand, about thought leadership. I think there's a lot here for people to kind of like get some inspiration, which is exciting. Talk to me a little bit about pivoting. Like, there's a lot of people that I think get all the way in and then they're like, I don't even know about this. Um, yeah, so I would love to just kind of understand anything you could share about that and how to kind of stay true to what you really want, because I think while we're building, we can lose ourselves, and it can take a year or two to write the book, get it out there, do the podcast, build the social media, offer the stuff.
Mhm.
And then it's like, well, shoot, I really want to, I don't know, like be in a different position, or I don't like this anymore. So what would you say there?
So, I mean, whether we love it or hate it, pivoting is something we are going to do if we stay in any kind of game of thought leadership or entrepreneurship for any amount of time, even if you're in corporate. Like, that's just there's just so much change that's going to keep happening. There's a Buddhist saying, accept constant change. Sort of like it's guaranteed, right? So being open to even pretending we enjoy a pivot. It's like, ooh, we can actually kind of like brainwash ourselves a little bit in a good way. Like, ooh, I get this is an opportunity for a pivot, and just seeing like what could be exciting about that, instead of thinking of it as either, oh, I failed, or I did this thing and I don't even like it. I built this, or it's taking so long. So I think the curiosity and sort of, being open to exploring the pivot is a great place to, instead of just I'm being forced, or I effed up, or this didn't work, or, having a lot of loads. So just even playing with the energy, like a state change into curiosity. Ooh, if I were going to pivot, like a fun game to play, this is a brain science thing. Instead of saying, what could I pivot? Because then we get all in our stuff, is like, if someone like me were going to pivot, what would she do?
Yeah.
What are 5 things? And play the 5 things game, like 5 possible pivots. And you just play the game. And like, I think gamifying a pivot is really helpful, because otherwise it can feel really scary. And you're leaving something that's maybe known, or maybe,
Yep.
and then and you're going into an unknown. It fires up our amygdala, our brain goes, crazy, our hormones are cranking out cortisol. So it's like, what if I gamify it? Like, what would someone like me do? I'm not saying I would do it, but like, playing a game of just what are 5 possible pivots, or so that kind of thing. I think reading stories of people, especially from like other walks of life and industries, about them pivoting is really helpful, because you just start seeing how it all worked out. Like, you
Right.
start getting some like reassurance of like, yeah, it was hard in the moment. You didn't know what was next, but then it, here's where that moment in the movie or the book happened. Thinking of yourself as like, the Shiro's journey. Like, you're just in a moment of like gonna have this exciting thing, right? And imagining it going well. And
Yeah.
then I think, again, just like with that market research thing, starting to listen, kind of ear to the tracks. It's like, because really a pivot is about meeting people where they are. If something either isn't working because we don't like it, or it just isn't catching fire the way that we want, it goes back to, what do people need? Like so many people in the world, like they don't get seen, they don't get heard, they're trying to find answers or help. And you're the person. Like
Yeah.
everyone who's listening is that for someone or maybe millions of someone's. And
Yeah.
so I think really ear to the ground of where can I serve? Where are people stuck? Where are they having a hard time? What are they just desperately wanting to be? And then where does that meet where I can help someone, right? And it's just that's the basis, whether we're starting something brand new or we're pivoting. I
Yeah.
think that listening piece and then giving that back to people and saying like, I've got you, let's go.
Mm, this has been such a nice conversation. I'm really excited you're here. Where will everybody find you? Where should people start looking?
Yeah, I mean, always DM me on Instagram anytime. I'm at Sara Connell and I don't have an H, so it's SaraConnell. Certainly. And then our YouTube channel is at Thought Leader Media. And so we're just launched, that's brand new. That's a new channel that just launched, but we're gonna have a lot of great stuff there and just free resources and help. And when people are, if you're sitting here like, I do want to write a book, but guys, you didn't give me like the step by step, you can get it over there and we'll give it to you for sure.
Thank you again for being here. I appreciate it. And for everyone, feel free to shoot her a message. And until next week. Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show because, as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we can help you craft your greatest talk of your life, how we can help you get booked on some of the biggest stages in the world, even the TED or TEDx stage. We'd love to hear from you, and that's it for this week.
Trying to solve, always think you know it. I've been thinking about you up against that wall. It's too late, I fell on every fall. Holding ground, no hearts. I'm holding ground, no hearts. Holding ground, no hearts. Late night drive, what you trying to do tonight? I swear you don't even try. Yeah, you still I can try and make you mine, but I don't think you like guys. I don't think you like guys. I don't think I should try. I guess it's time to give up.